Peter Towers, welcome to this conversation on how an investment in an early stage innovation company can be very beneficial for investors. Early stage innovation companies were introduced by the Australian government about 2.5 years ago, following some amendments made to the Income Tax Act. The reason for the introduction of this legislation was to encourage investors to seriously look at investing in some of the smart, young Australian companies that were developing new technologies. In fact, the definition indicates that the companies can have developed a new product, process, service, marketing, or management methodology. And at the end of that process, when they've invented their new business activity, many of them will be looking to raise some money to be able to finance their commercialization process so as to get them into the market. The government realized that for investors to show interest in some of these companies that have got no track record because they've just been developed, they would need to offer an inducement. And the inducement is by way of two major activities. One is a tax rebate based on the amount of investment, although there are some limits to the amount of investments that can be made if you are going to qualify for the tax rebate. And the second offer is a potential capital gains tax exemption that's available for the original investor in that company. So let's have a look at it. The tax rebate is available based on the amount of investment. The maximum investment that a retail investor can make is $50,000 in a 12-month period to a company. The tax rebate is 20% of the amount of that investment up to a maximum of $50,000. So therefore, the maximum rebate that is available for a retail investor is $10,000. The tax rebate that is available for a sophisticated investor is calculated at 20% on the amount of the investment made by the sophisticated investor. The maximum rebate for a sophisticated investor is $200,000. But an investor who's classified as a sophisticated investor can invest any amount of money, but the rebate will cut out at $200,000, which equates to a $1 million investment. Sophisticated investors are defined in the Corporations Act. And generally, a sophisticated investor needs to have net assets of at least $2.5 million or to have earned at least $250,000 in each of the last 2 years. And irrespective of which category the sophisticated investor wishes to be classified as, the sophisticated investor must be able to produce a certificate signed by an accountant that verifies their net wealth or their gross income over the last 2 years. The exemption from capital gains tax is available to both types of investors, retail or sophisticated, as long as they have owned the shares that are allocated in the company as part of the classification of the company as an early stage innovation company for more than 12 months and less than 10 years. In that situation, irrespective of the amount of gain that has been made on the investment in those shares, there is no capital gains tax. If the shares are still owned at the end of 10 years, the company has a valuation undertaken on the value of the company and then determines what that new shareholding owned by that original investor is worth in the company, and that value then becomes the cost price for that parcel of shares going forward until a capital gain is realised, and then the tax is calculated. To be able to qualify for this classification as an early stage innovation company, the company, its directors, and obviously its accountants will need to have prepared a due diligence review on a whole range of matters relating to the expenditure undertaken by the company in the last 12 months. It has to be under $1 million. And the income of the company in the last 12 months has to be under $200,000, not including any grant monies received from an accelerating commercialisation grant offered by the Australian government. The company then has to go through a series of tests to determine whether they will obtain the classification as an early stage innovation company. As accountants advising investors, you would need to follow this process through to make sure that the company directors are able to produce a due diligence report that clearly identifies that the company has qualified as an early stage innovation company. If the company is qualifying under the gateway test, this is basically black and white. They've either complied with the various tests and are able to produce supporting documentation to justify their decision that they have qualified under that test. If they are qualifying under the principles test, it is sound advice to make sure that your client, as the investor, has ensured that the company has received a ruling from the Australian Taxation Office that confirms that the company has qualified as an early stage innovation company. Just check the date that that endorsement from the Taxation Office operates to, because the tax office normally puts a deadline date. So they might issue an approval in April that will expire at the 30th of June. So the investor needs to be very much aware of that. Within ESS BizTools, we have a full package of information relative to early stage innovation companies and the situation concerning investors. You can go to www.essbiztools.com.au and click on the early stage innovation companies, learn more, and read the material. And you can download whatever you want of that. But we would most welcome you to become a subscriber to the ESS BizTools product package for early stage innovation companies, or in fact, you could subscribe to all of our products through our gold package subscription. And there are 23 individual product packages within ESS BizTools, and we produce an additional 3 or 4 every year. Whilst you're on our website, please apply to receive a copy of the white paper that we have prepared on early stage innovation companies from an investor's point of view. And you can watch the special webinar that we have produced so that you can understand all aspects of how this process works for you and your clients. If you have any other questions, please send me an email, peter@essbiztools.com.au. Have a great day. Goodbye.